Rockaways Productions presents The Casey Waters Show, episode 467, The Selected Prose of Fernando Pessoa, edited and translated by Richard Zenith, Part 2. Hello. I'm your host, Casey Waters. Today, I will continue with Merrill, my cat right here. I don't know if he's quite in camera range. But anyway, so today I'll continue with the selected prose of Fernando Pessoa, edited and translated by Richard Zenith. Here, the author, even though this prose was written about 100 years ago, has an interesting philosophical perspective. He's able to detach himself from society and think about life in a different way. Today's show will feature background footage from Shope Creek Trail. Shope Creek Trail is located at the end of Shope Creek Road. To get there, from Asheville, North Carolina, take US 70 east, going along Tunnel Road. When you get to the Veterans Hospital, take a left on Riceville Road. Once you get past the Riceville Fire Department, or just past it, a block or two past it, take a left on Bull Creek Road. After 100 yards or so, fork right onto Shope Creek Road. Follow it to the end, which includes crossing Shope Creek itself, that is, driving through it. There's no bridge. A short distance after this is the parking lot. Then you get on the trail. The trail splits. I went off to the right. The trail forks numerous times, and a GPS app is recommended on this hike. The GPS works best on the upper areas of the hike, where you need it the most. So I went off to the right. As I said, the trail forks numerous times, but I had a map of the trail. Eventually, I made it to the Blue Ridge Parkway at the junction of the trail that goes up to Lane Pinnacle. So, the Lane Pinnacle hike I do often. I like doing it because the trail is steep and goes straight up the mountain, providing a good physical workout. It takes a little over an hour for me to hike from the parkway straight up Lane Pinnacle to the summit. To get from the parking area at Shope Creek Road to the parkway where it meets Lane Pinnacle Trail took me an hour and 45 minutes. So this was a longer crossing of the Pisgah National Forest section to get to the parkway, further down the parkway, that is, further up along it. So, as I said, I came out across Lane Pinnacle Trail. Eventually, I got back, although I did get lost a little bit on the way back because I went a different way. So now, let's continue with the selected prose of Fernando Pessoa, edited and translated by Richard Zenith. Politics is the art of governing societies when no one knows how they're governed. Having political ideas is the easiest way to have no ideas. Politics is a misconceived vanity of men who were born to be coachmen. The only way to rule society is to disdain everyone else. Brotherhood is born out of mutual contempt. Progress is the least noble of unnecessary lies. Even without the concept of progress, we would stop progressing. Sensation writes straight on the crooked line of matter. Sensation is the bottomless vessel whereby critics act like the Danaids. Individually is inexhaustible, since every individual who is born adds to it. Logic is a wall erected around nothing. It is our aristocratic duty to loathe all who work and struggle, to abhor all who hope and trust, and to despise all self sacrificers. Trying to revive the tradition is like raising a ladder to climb up a wall that fell down. It's interesting because absurd, but only worth the bother because it's not worth the bother. The only basis for truth is self contradiction. The universe contradicts itself because it passes. Life contradicts itself because it dies. Paradox is nature's norm. That's why all truth has a paradoxical form. All of these principles are true, but the contrary principles are just as true. To affirm is to go through the wrong door. Now let's go to page 74 of the selected prose of Fernando Pessoa, edited and translated by Richard Zenith. The most irritating personality trait of the Portuguese is undoubtedly their overabundance of discipline. No one is more disciplined than the Portuguese. We take social discipline to that exaggerated point in which anything, no matter how good, and I don't believe that discipline is good, is bound to be unhealthy. So methodical, regular, and organized is Portuguese social life that we see more like an army than a nation of people with individual lives. Never does a Portuguese person act on his own, breaking with his milieu, turning his back on his neighbors. He always acts as part of a group, feels as part of a group, and thinks as part of a group. He always takes his lead from others. And when, by a miracle of temporary denationalization, he betrays his country through an independent gesture, thought, or feeling, his audacity is never absolute, since he remains attentive to other people and their criticisms. We closely resemble the Germans. Like them, we always act as a group, with each member acting only because everyone else acts. It's therefore impossible, here as in Germany, to determine who's responsible for something. It's always the sixth person, when only 5 people acted. Like the Germans, we always wait for the voice of command. Like them, we suffer from the disease of authority, obeying individuals without knowing why they're obeyed, citing names that don't objectively deserve to be cited, following leaders whom no demonstration of competence appointed to take responsibility for the nation. Like the Germans, we offset our strict ingrained discipline with superficial indiscipline, as if we were children playing at life. We protest only with words. We lambast in private, and by nature we're envious, rude, and brutish, because these are the qualities of people crushed by discipline, in whom individuality has atrophied. Now let's go to page 127, towards the middle of the page. The way of the serpent. To regard all things as accidents of an irrational illusion, although each thing by itself appears to be rational, herein resides the beginning of knowledge. But this beginning of knowledge goes only halfway towards understanding those things. The other half of understanding consists in familiarizing ourselves and intimately engaging with them. We must intimately experience what we repudiate. It's easy for someone incapable of feeling Christianity to reject it. What's difficult is to reject it or anything else after truly feeling, living, and being it. What's difficult is to repudiate it, or to be capable of repudiating it, not as a form of falsehood, but as a form of truth. To recognize the truth as truth, and at the same time as error, to live contradictory things, not accepting them, to feel all things in all ways possible, and to be nothing in the end but the understanding of all things. When a man ascends to this pinnacle, he is free. As in all pinnacles, he is alone. As in all pinnacles, he is united with heaven, with which he is never united, as in all pinnacles. The false light of reality, the false light of fiction, the false light of initiation and the occult. Day, dusk, night. What are they to one who contemplates pure reason, the serpent winding through more than the worlds? The serpent is above all orders and systems, and although it ascends in the directions they point, it dispenses with all lines and paths. Its movement, which is to the right in the lower order of things and beings, exists only so that it could go to the left in the higher order of things and beings. What people can attain only by self-domination in conjunction with others, or by imposition, this serpent attains all alone in its freedom. To rule for the serpent is to subordinate itself to the idea of ruling. Free and cautious, it slithers through the world and the spirit until it leaves them behind. The serpent knows not the mysteries, but surrounds them. It deviates from all pathways and initiations. It leaves science in its wake. It passes through magic, negating it. And when it reaches God, it does not stop. Now, let's go to page 130. In the middle of the page of the selected prose of Fernando Pessoa, edited and translated by Richard Zenith. The world is composed of two types of forces, forces that affirm and forces that negate. The forces that affirm are the world's creative forces, emanating successively from the one and only, the center of affirmation. The forces that negate emanate from beyond the one and only, of which God, i.e., God, the creator of the universe, is merely a manifestation, is an illusion. The whole of creation is fiction and illusion, even as matter is proven illusion of thought, thought and illusion of the intuition, intuition and illusion of the pure idea, and the pure idea an illusion of being, and being in its essence is illusion and falseness. God is the supreme lie. The forces that negate are those that proceed from beyond the one and only. To our mind, there is nothing outside the one and only. But since it is possible to think that this one and only doesn't exist, since it is possible to negate it, it is therefore not the one and only, the supreme, the utterly supreme. Here terms are lacking. To be able to deny it is to deny it. To deny it means it doesn't exist. The supreme negation is known as non-being. Non-being is unthinkable, since to think of non-being is not to think. And yet, since we employ the term non-being, it can be, in a certain way, be thought of. Once we think of it, it becomes being. This is how being emerges in opposition to non-being. Non-being, speaking in human language, precedes it. Matter, which is the greatest negation of being, is for this reason the state closest to non-being. Matter is the least of illusions, the weakest of all lies, hence its evident character. To the extent it manifests itself, being negates itself. To the extent it negates itself, it creates non-being. Since non-being precedes being, being's negation of itself is, if we may so speak, a creation. We should be creators of negation, negators of spirituality, makers of matter. Matter is appearance. Appearance is at once being and non-being. If appearance is not being, it is non-being. If it is non-being, it is not appearance. To be appearance, therefore, it must be being. Negation consists in helping the manifested to manifest itself yet more until it dissolves into non-being. There are two opposing principles, that of affirmation, spirituality, mysticism, which is Christian in our present civilization, and that of negation, materiality, clarity, which is pagan. Lucifer, the bearer of light, is the nominal symbol of the spirit that negates. The revolt of the angels created matter, the return to non being, freedom from affirmation. All the worlds affirmed by theosophists do really exist, but they are within illusion, which is, for as long as it lasts, reality, God, from his point of view, exists, but God is deceived, just as we think as we exist, but for God, have no existence except as part of him, meaning that we don't exist in the absolute, so God thinks he exists, but doesn't. Being itself is but the non-being of non-being, the mortal affirmation of life. Now let's go to page 156 of the selected prose of Fernando Pessoa, edited and translated by Richard Zenith. Without yet going into the metaphysical foundation of religion in general, or of any religion in particular, but accepting the sociological finding that humanity needs religion, that humanity needs religious expression to discipline and organize societies, we may affirm, as a corollary, that the best religion for disciplining and organizing societies will be the one that is closest to nature. Such a religion, because it is closest to nature, is the one that can act most directly on people, the one that can most effectively induce them not to stray from the basic natural laws that rule human and indeed all life, and the one that, since it least interferes with other human activities, can most stimulate people's mental and social activity to develop fully and freely. We can easily show, based on 3 simple observations, that the pagan religion is the most natural of all. The pagan religion is, in the first place, polytheistic, just as nature is plural. Nature does not naturally appear to us as an ensemble, but as a multiplicity of many different things. We cannot positively affirm, without the intervention of reason or the intelligence in our direct experience, that an ensemble called the universe actually exists, or that there is a unity, a united whole, identifiable as nature. Reality, when it first appears to us, is multiple. By referring all received sensations to our individual consciousness, we impose a false unity, false to our experience, on the original multiplicity of things. Since religion comes to us as an outer reality, it should agree with the fundamental characteristic of outer reality. That characteristic is the multiplicity of things. The first distinctive characteristic of a natural religion is, therefore, the multiplicity of gods. The pagan religion is, in the second place, human. The acts of pagan gods are the acts of magnified humans. They are the same They are of the same order, but on a larger divine scale. The gods differ from humanity, not by rejecting it, but by surpassing it, like demigods. For the pagan, the divine nature is not anti-human as well as superhuman. It is merely superhuman. And so the pagan religion agrees not only with the nature of the outer world, but also with the nature of humanity. Finally, the pagan religion is political, meaning that it forms part of the life of a city or state without aspiring to be universal. It does not impose itself on other cultures, but seeks instead to receive from them. It agrees, therefore, with the original principle of civilization as the synthesis in one nation of all possible influences from all other nations, a principle violated only by the political provincialism of rigidly nationalist governments and by the decadence embodied in imperialistic ones. Never has there been a strong conservative nation, nor a healthy nation that was imperialistic. It is those who cannot change that try to impose themselves. It is those who cannot receive that insist on giving, but those who cannot change and those who cannot receive have in fact stagnated. Thus, the pagan religion is in harmony with the three natural spheres of human experience, with the essence of nature as it comes to us, with the essence of humanity itself, and with the essence of human nature in its social progress, or, put it more simply, with the essence of civilized human nature, or, simpler still, with the essence of civilization. Now, let's go to page 200.
Casey Waters Show. Producer, Casey Waters. Graphic editing, Judson Laird. Please note our new email address, caseywaters2@caseywaters.com.